Hurricane Earl is moving northward, and we've got hurricane watches and tropical storm warnings up for the island of Bermuda. On the other side, we have Hurricane K, and Hurricane K may get awfully close to Southern California. Certainly, some of the rain is going to get in there as it moves northward and straddles along the western coast of the Baja Peninsula. And in between all that is a ton of dry air that is headed for the eastern part of the United States, for which we will be enjoying most fruitfully starting tomorrow and then getting really deep into it for Friday and Saturday. We'll have that and much more tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, which is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York, in southwest Suffolk County, on Long Island, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. They're a pretty big place, and they will make sure that your home is in tip-top shape just in case we get some adverse tropical weather. And that includes generators, sump pumps, whatever you need. And if it's not that, maybe you want to make your yard look good with some mulch and topsoil this fall. And then come wintertime, it's going to be sold. 631 756 1125 is the telephone number. And the website is
OmniTrueValue.com.
correct. So I was reading some of the discussions and looking at the forecasts for parts of Southern California, talking about first the east wind that was going to basically, cook them, and then, of course, the bands of K getting up there with some rain. And Joe, you don't see it too often, but we'll show it on the map. The Weather Prediction Center has a small area down near the California-Mexico border of moderate risk of flash flooding. You might see that every once in a while, maybe in the rainy season in the wintertime, but
Yeah.
not.
September?
Yeah.
September? No, that's a very, very rare occurrence in September. That's amazing.
And in the meantime, Earl is moving northward. It looks like it's going to make a turn to the northeast at some point, and probably the center will stay offshore, but Bermuda might get brushed with some tropical storm force winds. But the island of Bermuda has put up a hurricane watch, so they're kind of close. So I guess let's put the watch up just in case. But the good thing about where everything is positioned, but particularly where Earl is positioned, is the fact that it actually is going to be the catalyst to bring down, and September is known for its uh, beautiful weather days that we can have here with deep blue sky and sunshine and reasonable humidity and reasonable temperatures. And Earl will be helping that cause because of where it is. It's going to bring down dry air from eastern Canada, bring it down into the northeast and in the mid-Atlantic states, and I think we should be in pretty good shape right through Saturday and maybe into the first part of Sunday before another weather front starts to come through, which I noticed today on the GFS. I didn't look at the European yet, but the GFS has some showers already here by Sunday evening. That's faster than what some of the models were showing over the last couple of days. But I'm thinking at least through Sunday morning or early afternoon, we should be fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this weekend will be a very nice weekend, a very good weekend for outdoor plans, especially on Saturday. And again, the key to this, Joe, as you just mentioned, not only just the fair and dry weather, but the lowering dew points that'll make for lower humidity and more comfortable conditions in the coming days.
Keith James II on the chat board, Joe, would like to know what is the Fujiwara effect? And he's heard this mentioned on the news before. I mean, I've heard it mentioned on weathercasts, but on newscasts, I mean, that's a little unusual.
When you get two tropical systems, two tropical cyclones, for example, of almost equal strength, approach closely to each other, they don't. You look at this, and you say, "Oh, they're going to merge. They're going to turn into one big." That doesn't necessarily happen. What usually happens more often than not is the effect which I guess Mr. Fujiwara wrote a paper about and described. It's almost as if the two systems do for lack of anything else, a better term, a dozy-do, if you will. They kind of spiral around each other, and the eventually, I guess one of the two systems may get enough strength to absorb the other. But initially, you have these two systems, going round and round each other, and making for a rather interesting. And I've seen this a few times out in the Atlantic waters. I don't think. Well, is the reason that this is being brought up the fact that maybe somebody? No, it couldn't be that Earl and Danielle possibly would do a Fujiwara. No, they're much too far separated.
No, but you
and
know
aren't
what?
going to get.
You know what might happen though, and we could talk about this. The low from that wave that formed on that front is clearly evident as a low-level circulation off the Virginia coast on the radar. I'm sorry, on the satellite loops. There's no thunderstorm activity around it. It's just a low cloud swirl, but the models kind of keep it intact. And when you look at some of the runs, they have, particularly the European was showing this, which is kind of bizarre, is that it sort of holds onto it as an identifiable feature, and then as Earl moves out to the northeast, that surface low, which initially is on the northwest side of Earl, winds up going southwestward. As Earl pulls out, it rotates southwestward. So that's kind of where you might see it. But, 9 times out of 10 in a case like this where you have a powerful hurricane and a weak surface low, that one usually absorbs the other, and usually it's the stronger feature that does so. So I was a little surprised that the European did what it did. But it also did what it did, so you want to pay a little bit of attention to it. Doesn't have any practical impact on our weather. It was just kind of interesting to see the model do that. So maybe that's where it's coming from.
And the nice weather that'll be coming in for the next few days. The one thing that it is going to lack, which quite often you see this in this time of the year, mid or late September, with this type of a setup, is wind. We're not going to get that refreshing, northwesterly breeze. There will be breezes coming from the north and northwest. Will be rather light, averaging around 5, maybe 10 miles per hour. But it's not going to be one of those cases where it's going to be like, oh, it's an invigorating, cool, dry. No, it's not going to be. It's going to be drier, and temperatures are, not necessarily going to be cool. Normally, at this time of the year now, we expect temperatures, at least here in the lower Hudson Valley, in the mid 70s, and I could see temperatures on Friday still in the upper 80s, maybe upper 70s, I should say, low 80s on Saturday, and around 80 still on Sunday. So it's going to be still a bit above the seasonal normals. But the one thing about it will be dry weather, sunshine, and again, a dip in the dew points, making it more comfortable, lower humidities, taking us through Saturday. Sunday, it may actually begin to get a bit muggy, if you're going to use that term. And as you mentioned, Joe, possibly by the day's end on Sunday, so a couple of showers may enter the picture. If not, we'll probably kick off next week on Monday with a showery weather regime.
By the way, Keith, if you want to see the Fujiwara effect on your own, if you're old enough, maybe you have some old toys that you never throw out, because I do. If you have two tops and you spin two tops and you watch them, they'll get close to each other, and then the force that's produced by the top spinning will cause them they'll come close, and then they'll just kind of go apart, and one will sort of try to rotate around the other. On the other hand, if one is spinning faster than the other one, it'll just probably come in and crash it. But that's kind of what that's basically the concept here. Welcome to everybody on the chat board tonight, and welcome to those of you watching the Joe and Joe Weather Show. We're glad to have you with you on this Wednesday night. If you like the Joe and Joe Weather Show, please, by all means, hit the like button, because Joe and I love it when people hit the like button, especially if we can manage to take it over 100. We're only at 24 at the present time, but it's a long show, so you might like it now and not like it later, or you might not like it now, but you might like it later. either way. So on that silly note, why don't we go to the satellite and we can see what's going on with respect to the two hurricanes and the weather that's going on in between the two. Let me get rid of myself here. The side, there we go. And you can see Earl is on the lower right as a Category 1 hurricane. Still probably hasn't reached its peak intensity yet. And we have Hurricane K on the lower left, which has already most likely has reached its peak intensity as it's moving northward. And you can see the clouds are pushing up the coast, up the Baja Peninsula. There are actually some clouds that have rolled into southwestern Arizona and southern New Mexico, some of the blow-off moisture that's running out well to the northeast. A lot of tropical moisture there with that system. And in the meantime, here in the Northeast, if you look closely, it's a little hard because we go from the visible to then the sun sets, and we go to the infrared. But if you look at those few frames on the visible, you could see the low clouds that are turning east of the Virginia coast. So there's a low-level swirl there with the wave that developed on the front. And hey, Joe, there were some showery rains that got a bit widespread for a while this afternoon in the Northeast, the leftovers of the upper trough. But now, just looking at the radar at the moment, a lot of that stuff has dried up. So I think we're on the road to improvement here.
Yeah, it was kind of a disappointing day in a way because there were times during the midday when it looked like we were just about ready to leave the clouds behind and the sun was getting ready to push on through for good. But then clouds made a comeback, and there were probably maybe in my general vicinity a few scattered showers. I guess we'll have to wait until tomorrow to fully break out into the dry, fresh, fair conditions that we were kind of hoping for today, but never really got there.
Yeah, there might be some leftover clouds around early tomorrow morning, I thought, especially near the coast, but they should give way to partly to mostly sunny skies, as we go through the day. So I think tomorrow's going to turn out okay. Radar right now is a bit busy down in Virginia, particularly in central Virginia, where we have a couple of big thunderstorms there. Also in coastal North Carolina, we're seeing some showers and thunderstorms this evening that extend back westward to me, because I had a downpour here about an hour ago that sounded like somebody was firing a machine gun on my roof. And yeah, it really does. It does sound. I have a metal roof, so when it rains hard, it really does. It makes noise. And down along the Texas and Gulf Coast, you're seeing patches of showers and thunderstorms over Florida, off the Florida Panhandle, also in southeast Mississippi, into parts of Alabama, across southern Louisiana and coastal Texas. And meanwhile, out in the west, we've got some showers and some thunderstorms and even some severe weather in eastern Oregon that's going on, and in parts of Montana. And that's where the Storm Prediction Center has two areas of slight risk, one from eastern Oregon into western Idaho, and another covering much of south central Montana. Slight risk with the marginal risk around that. Also, we have a marginal risk that's kind of winding down a bit in Louisiana and parts of Texas, the southeast Texas, and then down the coastal bend and extending inland a bit. And over the next couple of days, there's really not a whole lot going on from the standpoint of severe weather. Just a small area up in the western lakes tomorrow and in eastern Minnesota where we have a marginal risk, and then just some areas of general thunderstorm risk for Friday into Saturday, which includes Southern California all the way up to just south of Reno, and southern Nevada, southern Utah, Arizona, most of New Mexico, into Colorado and northeast into the western lakes. Also in the lower Ohio Valley, Tennessee Valley, and southeast. And here it is, Joe, on the WPC's rainfall forecast map. Now, folks, you got to remember, flash flooding in Southern California, particularly in very dry desert areas, it really doesn't. You can get a quarter of an inch of rain and get flash flooding because everything is just baked to concrete. So any water that comes down just runs off. But they actually have a little finger of 2 inch plus rainfalls extending into Southern California to the east of San Diego. But they give San Diego almost an inch of liquid here, and they even have a half an inch to 3/4 of an inch going up to LA and points north with 1 inch plus amounts, mainly in the mountain areas. And they were talking in their discussion about how tricky it was going to be to forecast the rainfall amounts because of various mountain shadows that are produced because of the wind direction, which is going to be from the east. That actually causes precipitation to dry up in upslope and downslope in some places. So, but they were talking about, and this is stuff that I don't know because I don't know the topography there. I just have a general idea about it. But it's gonna be a tough time for them. They're gonna have a difficult time forecasting this with these tropical bands coming up.
And it doesn't often happen that that at this time of the year we do get those kind of rains, and so the possibility for Southern California teams like the Dodgers or the Anaheim Angels and San Diego Padres, they stand a risk of actually having a rain delay or even a rain out in the next day or so with this type of a pattern, which again doesn't often happen in mid or late September.
By the way, I got the West Coast surface map up with K, and then we could take a look at Earl. The GFS and the various ensembles continue to shift this a little bit further west, where it actually goes and makes a landfall over the central part of the Baja Peninsula. The low is. And I got to tell you, the gradient ain't too shabby when it gets up into around the San Diego area. There's a couple of isobars there with whatever surviving low, but you could see the moisture that does get into Southern California and points northward. I'll see what the GFS rainfall is with this. Yeah, I mean the GFS actually also has. They have the dark blue is at least a half an inch, and then you get into the purple, which is 2 inches, and you pushes up. No, not all the way up the state, obviously, but it certainly pushes up to the LA. Draw a line from LA to Las Vegas, and from there south, you start to get into some of the heavier precincts. This is going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out.
And it will indeed be most interesting. You just simply do not see this every summer. This is an anomaly, a very rare anomaly, and something that the folks in Southern California, in a way, have been praying for. With all the extreme heat and dry weather, they are actually going to see moisture from a tropical system, a hurricane, work its way into their part of the country over the next 24 to 36 hours.
And here's the way the upper air sets up there in the west, where we have this the big heat ridge that's probably centered right over Utah. You can see K is just coming onto this shot, and also there's the short wave to the north. And we've been talking about this short wave because what it's going to do, it's going to crack that ridge and weaken it considerably. And the trough drops down into Montana and the Dakotas. All the while, with the weakening ridge, K can move northwestward up the coast until the shortwave pulls out. Now, on this run, Joe, it just kind of, instead of hooking the upper feature to the left, what it's doing is it takes it north all the way up to just off the coast of San Diego, and then it just sort of leaves it there because the ridge doesn't build back in time. So the other thing that's working in the favor that works in the favor of California because of the very cold ocean of the Pacific, ocean water temperatures of the Pacific in September. I mean, everybody thinks it's not the same on both coasts. The cold water goes all the way down almost to 25 degrees north. It actually also goes down all to about 20 degrees north, where the Atlantic profile is totally different. And as a result, these systems are going to weaken anyway as they once they get into that colder water, unless they have something in the upper atmosphere that's going to come down and energize it, like a trough off the coast of California, or maybe a cutoff low off of California. But you don't have that. But so the ocean water is going to do its job and weaken it anyway. But the fact that the features are going to be allowed to degenerate as they move northward means that the moisture is going to be able to push northward as well, which is why the rainfall is going to get as far north as it does.
Right. Folks who go to the beach, let's say you're you're in Los Angeles, say, let's go to the beach, let's take a dip. It's not like taking a dip in the water at Jones Beach in September, where the temperatures are in the 70s. It is a heck of a lot cooler, Joe, as you just pointed out, for the Pacific waters, because those waters are emanating not from the south, coming up in the from the south of the Gulf Stream. They're coming down from the north, and again, much cooler. And the reaction of a tropical system like this storm, this tropical cyclone K, reacting adversely to that by weakening very rapidly. So a whole different world out on the left coast.
And the water temperatures near the shore are probably like around LA. They're usually around 70, 71, or 72. Down to San Diego, about the same. But once you get, and you don't have to go that far offshore. Once you go offshore, you start to get to water temperatures that are in the 60s and even the 50s into the deeper water. And it's constantly getting upwelled. So it's just not the same. Meanwhile, in the east, we've got the residual leftover trough here that's to our west. That is just sort of hanging around. You can see Earl is responding to that troughiness right along the coast by moving northward, and there it is. And it just starts to turn to the northeast as the bottom of that trough drops down into the Gulf states. And this is going to probably create some rain issues in parts of the southeastern U.S. As we head toward the end of the week. But Earl itself is going to get close to Bermuda and then, just pass to the east. I think the center will probably pass just to the east of Bermuda by maybe 70 or 80 miles, and then go on its merry way as another trough drops down from Newfoundland and Nova Scotia and picks it up and moves it out to the northeast. So while all that's going on, with an upper low in Arkansas and Louisiana and an upper low and Earl well out into the Atlantic somewhere to the east of 60 degrees west, we've got a nice ridge in between that builds in and gives us a pretty good weekend in the northeast and in the northern mid-Atlantic states.
Right. Very, very nice, very lovely weekend, and a lot of people, I'm sure, looking forward to that.
And here comes, by the way, here comes the next trough into the Western Lakes, which cuts off over the Great Lakes. Bit of a change in the models here today. Where the GFS was dropping this down into the lower Ohio Valley and Tennessee Valley, at least, and just kind of hanging it there. Now it wants to just be more progressive with it across the lakes and then carry it into the northeast into upstate New York by Wednesday and then gone, which means that whatever we get Monday into Tuesday with this cold front, warm front, cold front scenario, once that's done, weather conditions should improve for the latter part of the week. Now this will give us the opportunity to look at the European and see what the European is doing with this. So the European, on the other hand, so here we are this evening. Earl there on the lower right also makes the turn just in time where the center passes by Bermuda. Actually, it's a little further east in the GFS. You can see the southern part of the trough in the east drops down into Louisiana, creating a bit of a southerly flow off the Gulf and into the southeastern part of the U.S. for Friday into early Saturday. And then the upper low weakens, thankfully. I say that for me because I don't want it to rain for 4 days in a row again. And here comes the next trough that drops it into Iowa. See, now the European's a little different, Joe. The European has got a 1, 2, 3, almost 4 contour cutoff low in central Indiana by the middle of next week and takes until the end of next week before it clears out into the east. So the models are handling things differently. The European would imply a wetter weak next week that would probably last until maybe Friday, as opposed to getting out of the way sometime late on Tuesday because of how it handles this next upper trough that drops down from in the Great Lakes and makes this cutoff low. So the models are in two different places here.
How realistic is it for a for let's say 1, 2, 3, 4 contour cutoff in mid-September for that at this time of the year?
Yeah,
I know we're getting it. I know we're getting into the fall, deeper into the fall season now, but it's a little bit on the.
it's a little odd, I will say. Um, I don't know that it happens often. I want to just check to see something here. Maybe this will help us. The NAO is. Why can't all of a sudden now I can't bring up this chart? Up this chart. Oh, here we go. So the NAO is actually uh, right now rather negative. It's like a -1, and the GFS ensembles from last night kind of brought it up to the neutral line. I just wonder whether the European version of this, which I don't have, but if the European version of this, I wonder if it has a negative North Atlantic oscillation, which would then explain why it's cutting that thing off the way it is.
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know either.
Now,
It's a good question, but it's oftentimes the models are going to be a little bit different. In this particular case, they are more than just a little bit different. Also, the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, both these indices that we're showing you, by the way, they basically explain pressure pattern changes. One in the Pacific and over North America. The other one, the NAO, is the North Atlantic. When it's on the PNA, the Pacific North America Index, when it's positive, it means that you generally have ridging in the western part of the United States, and you have troughing in the eastern part of the United States. That's not it's not a 100% that way. It depends on how much, how positive is the PNA, how negative is the PNA. And right now, it's actually neutral to just slightly negative over the next. It's going negative, which is probably the reason why, when that ridge breaks down in the west and you get that trough that goes into Montana that we showed you earlier, that's this little negative blip here, and then it goes positive again. So it's telling you that the ridge is going to build back in the western part of the United States, which would favor troughing in the east. So they're not offering any definitive clues here over which model here has the upper hand.
well, you take a look and see. We had during the latter part of August, the PNO, the index, PNO index was
Yes.
positive, and we had that long stretch of dry and unseasonably warm weather. So might we begin to believe that from what we just saw in the days to come that we might revert back to that type of a pattern of dry and unusually mild temperatures or unusually warm temperatures?
Well, if I bring the upper air to the GFS back up here, the answer to that question is yes. In fact, let me just widen this out. We'll go to the North America view. I mean, if we widen this out with this trough, once it pulls out, Joe, we're kind of like in a flattish ridge position here. The westerlies are New York, central New York northward. So yeah, I mean, we would probably get warm, and in fact, it actually builds at a 591 upper high by the time we get to about September 19th, 20th in the Ohio Valley. You see it here, ridge right there in the Ohio Valley that pushes eastward. But there's also some sort of cutoff that's off the Virginia coast. Then you start to see more trough, a little trough come into the east after that. But it would suggest, if this were correct, it would suggest that after the system for Monday and Tuesday, we actually will warm up and get dry again. Now, if we look at the European, on the other hand, it would not quite go in the same route because that upper low takes forever to move out of Indiana and Ohio, and it doesn't get out of here until maybe late next week. And then after that, we just got this, blase westerly flow that comes in to replace it.
Yes, another spell of possibly dry weather and warm weather. And I tell you, Joe, for those people who look forward to uh, the changing colors on the leaves, at least the deciduous trees, I really don't see much color this year. I think because of the dry weather and warm weather, a lot of the colors are going to be muted this particular fall season. So we'll see.
That we shall. Here's the way the European plays the moisture, and then we'll switch it off to the GFS here. Okay, I'm just rolling this back. Just give me a moment. I want to get my phone. Somebody just, Timothy, I think Timothy Veltman may have just sent me a message. Oh, thank you. Timothy just sent me the Euro Ensemble. All right, I'll bring that up in a moment. Thank you, Timothy Veltman. Here's the European with K. Keeps it just offshore, but the European does bring that rain into Southern California and actually holds the surface low. Joe, it's got a 993. This is Saturday. This is Friday night at about 11 o'clock, so just around midnight Friday night. It's got a 993 low just to the southwest of San Diego, with a bunch of isobars there. I mean, there's going to be wind and waves down into Southern California out of this, no question. But anyway, just going back to us, first off, you could see with the cutoff going down into Louisiana, all the wet weather that moves into the southeastern part of the United States on Friday and into Saturday. And then, still some residual showers on Sunday as it gets involved with that next cutoff that's dropping southward. The weather in the Northeast looks good. The European would imply that no precip would get here until at the earliest would be Tuesday, late Tuesday, or maybe even not till Tuesday night. If it cuts off that far to the west, Joe, it may take a while for any rain to get in here.
Yeah. Well, it's the classic game of splits and blocks that is going to be played out over the coming days ahead.
Yep.
And that's all I could say.
998 low east of San Diego on the GFS by Saturday morning. We've got, as we said here, we pull out Earl. Our weather is nice into the mid-Atlantic states. You can see the heavy rain in the southeast. And then there's a low in the Great Lakes come Sunday. Again, the GFS solution is different. It's not as dynamic looking as the European is, and it would move things along at a quicker, faster. And you've got rain holds off on the GFS until sometime Sunday evening or Sunday night, and then have a front that comes through sometime Monday night, and then weather conditions improve after that for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and Friday, and into the latter part of next week. So again, those are the big differences with the two models. Now let's look at the North Atlantic, so we could take a look at oil, and here it is. Let me get my little pencil here. So here's Earl. By the way, here's Danielle out in the Atlantic. Here's the surface low off the Virginia coast. Here is what could be another tropical depression developing out in the central Atlantic. And then we have what could be another tropical wave that's getting ready to move off the African coast. Now, Keith James, if you're watching, take a look here. There's Earl, and then to the northwest, you see there's a closed isobar there off the coast, and that is what's left of the surface low. It looks like, Joe, it's absorbed by Earl, and then then Earl, of course, moves away to the northeast. Now, the European was a little different with this. The European was a bit more bizarre. There's your closed low off the Virginia coast. There's Earl. And it looks like it kind of absorbs it, but it must leave an unidentifiable feature because as Earl pulls out to the northeast, a surface low redevelops and drops southwestward toward Bermuda on Sunday. You see that 1,003 low there. I mean, I don't know where that comes from. So as Earl is moving away in one direction, the low to the southwest is the low that forms moves southwest. Meanwhile, the system in the central Atlantic is coming up, and that gets involved here, and it either gets absorbed by Earl or gets absorbed by the new low that forms. It's all very weird.
Well, that area of low pressure that is located, according to the Hurricane Center, several hundred miles west of the Cabo Verde Islands, has a 70% chance, a high probability of development within the next 48 hours. In fact, that continues right on through the next 5 days. If that indeed develops and gets a name, that'll be our F storm. Of course, the Pacific already has an F storm, Faye. Our F storm would be Fiona. And then there's that system that's just lying right on the African coastline, right along the west coast of Africa. It only has about a 30% chance of development over the next 5 days. But if it does develop sometime down the road, that would be obviously the G storm, and that would be Gaston. So we're looking at the embryonic development, perhaps, of Fiona and Gaston further out to the east over the next 4, 5, 6 days. So we'll keep an eye on those two systems. Right now we have two hurricanes, again, Earl and Danielle.
And yet all the troughing that's running around in the Atlantic, and you've got the two hurricanes out there, that they're going to leave weaknesses, which may, as these systems come off the African coast, there'll be openings for these things to turn to the north before they get anywhere close to any of the islands. So that's at least a plus from that standpoint. All right, let's take a look at what's going on with Earl right now. We'll go to current storms, and Earl is at 8 p.m. Still forecast to become a major hurricane by Friday, but after it's gone past, well, actually has it a major as it's passing Bermuda. At 8 p.m., 26.8 north, 65.5 west. Maximum sustained winds are now 90 miles an hour. The ensembles, well, the hurricane tracking models are all, I mean, you and they're clustered this tight. There's not going to be much of a change, and you can see how tight they are. Bermuda's that little dot that's along 65 degrees west, halfway between 30 and 35, so it's like a 32.5 and about just east of 65 west. This passes about 100 miles east of Bermuda. The center does, but more than likely there'll probably be some action on the west side in the form of some gales, and then it goes up into the open waters of the Atlantic and goodbye. The recon, the latest reconnaissance aircraft is actually just going there now, so we don't have any new information with regards to what's happening with the recons. They have one into K, and that one also just left, so we don't have anything new from that. The old one from earlier, two fixes at 970, because we don't see recons in the Pacific very often. 971 pressure. You can see a lot of wind out here in the reds. That's all 60. Those are all 60 to 64 knot winds. So it has a fairly large wind field here with winds to hurricane force that extend actually a fair distance out to the northeast of the center, at least at flight level. They'll probably be a little bit lower down at the surface. So we don't really have anything new from that standpoint. And K on the ensembles. I'm sorry, K on its latest advisory. No, I got Earl. I'm sorry. One moment. Give me a second here. By the way, you can find all of this wonderful stuff on tropicaltidbits.com. Just go to the menus. You can either go to current storms or the aircraft recon to get all sorts of information. Now here's K, which right at the moment is at the advisory time, which was 6 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time, which is 8 o'clock Eastern Time. 22.6 north, 113.0 west. Top winds are 100 miles an hour, moving north-northwest at 13. They track it in that part of the Baja Peninsula where it extends out. It looks like the track would be right over the western tip of that, and then it starts to hook to the left when it's to the southwest of San Diego, and they maintain it as a tropical storm right through noontime Saturday. So, as I've been said earlier, very interesting for us to be watching this. And here's the European ensembles, Joe. So here's the European. This is the European. I think this is the NAO. I can't see the title here. But this is the NAO, which is negative now, rises up to the neutral line, but just kind of stays neutral-ish, and then it moves up toward +1. So the European, oh, that's a nice shot that we could think about for the upcoming winter. All right, hang on. I got to get these. These are all, he sent me a whole bunch. Thank you, Timothy. This is the NAO. Okay. That's the NAO. So negative, slightly positive, turns negative. I can't see this darn thing. This is, oh, I make it smaller. It's making it bigger. But you get the idea here, folks. The European ensembles are not offering much of a clue as to why the operational part of the model is doing what it's doing. So on that particular note, I think we will bring us back up here. So let me get you first because I'm a polite kind of guy. So I bring you on camera first, and then I will bring myself into the screen. So there we are. And now I can see what's going on the chat board. So do you have Briller Jeopardy tonight?
I just might. I might.
You might, Rabbit. You might.
I might. You might, Rabbit. You might. All right. Oh, there's a lot of stuff here. Am I looking at the right one? Hold on. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, here we go. First of all, the chairman says, hope your voice gets better. Well, it's not. As we continued, retired names, tropical names for Mr. Chiappi. So here we go with question number 1, Joe. There are 2 questions, just 2 tonight. Question 1, name the only Greek letter storms that have been retired.
Oh, what's the one they just, was it Iota? Was one?
You've got one.
I
want to give you the bell.
Ding, ding, ding. Michael McGuire hitting super chat tonight. Thank you very much. Hoping Kay comes in just enough to help Southern California with their rainfall. We'll see. This is gonna be pretty close for them, as we've been saying. The other one was, oh God, I don't remember. So what is it? Alpha, beta, gamma, delta. What's the E one? Eta?
Eta.
Eta? There you go.
Yep. Iota and Eta, the only 2 Greek letter storms that have been retired. And here is the second question. Name the 2 R letter storms that have been retired.
Rita is one.
That's one.
Oh, I'm never going to get the next one. Is it a male or female name?
Female.
Female. R. Oh my God. Oh, Jesus. I honestly, Joe, let's see if the chat board have any idea. Ruth, Rebecca, And they're starting to throw R names because, once upon a time we never used to get that far down in the alphabet, which actually you'd think would make this easier. Rita, I remember because of that standout year in 2005. But Rose.
Rachel, you've come back.
So it's
but it's not you.
It's not Rachel.
Not Rachel.
R Storm, and it's a female name. Can you give me the second letter?
O.
Roxanne, put on your red lights, Roxanne. No, I don't. Is it Roxanne?
Yes.
You're kidding me. I just guessed that. What year was Roxanne?
Did not give a year. Just said Roxanne and Rita, the only two R letter storms that had been retired. And here's the bonus question. Bonus, Joe. Bong, bong, bong. In 2010, the only T letter storm was retired. The only that is a T.
Yes. By the way, Roxanne was rare. It was in the southwest Gulf of Mexico, apparently. Wait a minute. Hold on. A rare and erratic tropical cyclone that caused extensive flooding in Mexico due to its unusual movement. The 17th storm, 10th hurricane, and 5th and final major of that year, 1995. Developed in the southwest Caribbean, blah, blah, blah. Recurved northwest to avoid landfall in Central America. Then from there, west-northwestward and westward. Got to a Category 3 hurricane before it made landfall in Cozumel. So I'm sorry, I misspoke when I said the southwest Gulf of Mexico. Okay, the only T storm that was retired. Okay, so the board is saying Thomas without an H, and then Thomas with an H. Teresa. Teresa and Thomas are the two names they're pulling up. So I honestly, I don't have any clue. So how about a second letter?
O.
An O?
Yes.
Male or female?
Male.
Male. Well, Johnny Quest says Tomas.
And Johnny Quest is right.
Ding, 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 ding. Johnny Quest knows his stuff, I have to tell you. Yes. So there. That wasn't.
So there you.
So that wasn't too shabby.
That was painful. That was not painful at all.
No, not at all. All right. So we're going to wrap the show up tonight. Thanks everybody for being here. But let me just see. We got to 54 likes. If you want to hit the like button and take it up a little higher, it would be appreciated. But what I'm not going to. I don't think we're going to stick around for 100 likes today. So Joe and I will be back tomorrow night at the usual shopping time, which is
7:30 Eastern Daylight Time.
Okay.
That corresponds to 23:30 Universal or Greenwich Mean Time, Coordinated Universal Time.
Correct. And I'm going to give one last check here on the aircraft recon into Earl. Okay. We do have something. So here's a bonus. So hang on, folks. Just a second. So here we go. Thanks, Earl Warren, for the heads up on the chat board about the fact that Earl may be strengthening again. So here we have the recon fix, Joe. 971 on the first pass, 970 on the next pass. I'm seeing some wind barbs there showing winds between 96 and 113 miles an hour east of the center. So we may be getting ready to see the pressures drop down into the 950s and Earl become a major hurricane, as indicated by the folks at the National Hurricane Center. And let me see if they updated the drop zone. Okay, so yeah, on the drop zones, if you take a look on the screen here, you've got the first pass pressure on that was 960. It's not quite the just kind of touching the 965 on both. And on the blue wind peak, Joe, on the first wind peak, it's up around 90 knots. On the second wind peak, up to 105 knots. So I think we're getting pretty close here that this become a major hurricane very soon.
Well, at 105 knots, that would translate in miles per hour to 120.
Right, but that's
Right?
yeah. Then they always do that the correction. They always correct, but certainly the flight level winds between 96 and 113 would suggest that this thing is getting close.
Yes, I would agree. Most definitely.
And the Joe and Joe Weather Show, by the way, is brought to you by Omni True Value Hardware at 1226 North Wellwood Avenue in West Babylon, New York. For all your hardware needs, 631-756-1125, serving the entire New York, New Jersey, Connecticut tri-state area. That's the telephone number, and the website is omnitruevalue.com. So we'll see you tomorrow night. Everybody have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow night at 7:30. Nighty night.
Good night, all.